Hi, it's Hannah with the Montessori Makers podcast, also known as Montessori Microphone. And today I want to talk to you about coaching. Now, coaching is something that has helped me immensely. It has helped me throughout my career. Certainly, as I was more senior in my work and the coaching was more clear and it was planned, I certainly got a lot more out of it, but I've been coached in various ways throughout my whole career, specifically in Montessori. That's what I've been doing. And I want to talk to you a little bit about coaching, specifically for Montessori guides and teachers, as well as assistants, and particularly around leadership. So, when I think back to my career, there are a lot of things that I did to get to the place that I am now. I was once a primary guide for many years. I worked in lots of different schools, public schools, independent schools. I worked with different populations, some that were more diverse, some that were more homogeneous. And every population that I worked with had varying needs. And over the time that I worked, I had to develop different skill sets in order to serve the needs of the children and families that I was working with at the time. After I left teaching, actually, when I was still teaching, I started coordinating and supporting elementary classrooms as well. I went on to become a full time director of curriculum instruction and coach. I was a head of school, so managing lots of classrooms and lots of other administrators and other coaches and leaders. And to the point that I'm at now, where I do work supporting schools and leaders and individuals who are working in classrooms so that they can offer their best selves to children. And it would be remiss if I were to not talk about how much coaching helped me to pave the pathways toward success for myself, particularly success for the children, and success for other people. Now, had you asked me many years ago when I first started this work, when I first left training and was ready to go into the classroom, and I felt like I knew all of my lessons, I knew the theory, the philosophy, everything was beautifully curated and ready to go. Had you asked me if I thought I needed a coach, I would have said absolutely not. I know all the things, I'm ready to jump in, I'm ready to do this work. And I would have been sorely mistaken because there is so much that you don't know going into new situations. Even as a veteran teacher, there were things that I didn't know. And there is a lot, strangely enough, that you don't know about yourself in the way that you function. There's something about the way that you do things within your space and the way your relationships work, both with adults and children, and the ways that you interact, the way that you do your work, the way that you offer lessons, the way that you manage situations, um, that you can see. And there are parts about all of these things that you actually can't see because you're in it. So, having a coaching relationship can really support those things. I want to dive in a little bit about one of my first formal coaching experiences where I was being coached. So, this is not to discount all of the times that when I was young and really still learning how to do my craft, and there were mentor teachers who stepped into my life and showed me, various ways of supporting a group of small children in a classroom who needed to get through a circle time, or who gave me some tips and tricks for children who weren't really grasping onto the sound games and sandpaper letters yet, or those folks that helped me understand what information I maybe needed to bring to an IEP meeting, or how my organization really supported my practice. Um, but it wasn't until I had actually moved out of the classroom and into an administrative role that I was in my first formal coaching relationship. And it was somewhat unexpected. So I'm going to kind of paint the picture here for you. I had joined a new position with a new school, and I was going to be an administrative leader. And I was really excited to do this. And I knew what was in my job description, and I felt very capable of doing those things. I knew there would be some hills to climb and some ways that I needed to grow, but I felt ready for this challenge. And upon getting there and starting in this work, I learned that there was another component to this work which required me to coach the individuals that I was working with in a quite a formal fashion. But I hadn't ever been formally coached myself. So there was a need for me to learn what it felt like from the other side. Enter one of my mentors, now mentor. Wasn't at that time, but now mentor, because I've learned so much from this person. So I met this person in somewhat of a unique situation where they just kind of were joining for some of the preschool year startup activities. We were all, gathering together, learning about one another, making sure everybody knew the basics for how to start off the school year right. We did this for an extended period of time since it was the school's first year opening. So all the staff and faculty got together for several weeks before the year began. And this person was joining a lot of the things, and they, kind of slowly moved their way into my life and my experience. And as I think back on it, I think the first things that they were doing with, like, unbeknownst to me, was really about building trust. And they would open up about, some pieces going on with them. They would ask me about pieces going on with me. And at the time, I remember feeling very slow to warm. Not really sure what their role was, not really sure like how they were, like if they were going to take part in evaluating me. So wasn't really sure what I wanted to open up with. But they made me feel very at ease. I remember just feeling really relaxed when I was with them, and really calm, and could talk freely and openly about someone who also lived and breathed Montessori, which was really great. And that's when the person kind of shared with me that they were there to have a coaching relationship with me and a few other leaders, and to help me in my craft as I was beginning to coach others. As we began on this formal journey of coaching, I had been a guide for many years, felt like I knew that like the back of my hand. I'd coordinated programs. I had been in other people's classrooms, helping them figure out how to move towards normalization, or how to organize things, put systems and structures in place in order to make sure that everything was moving very smoothly. And I was pretty new to managing a whole school. I had the skills ready to do the things, but I hadn't yet put them into practice. And so this person sat with me once a week, every week, for several years while I was doing this, to go through all of the things that were going on with me in relation to my work. And sometimes personal things came up too from my end, that would affect my work or impact how I was viewing or seeing work. And they were always open to listening. They were always open to hearing all of the things that I had to say, and paying close attention to how those things were related to the work that I was doing. And I remember that when we gathered, we would always start with 3 buckets, and we would talk about what's going well, what's kind of just even keel, and what needs work. And I think that starting with those things every time we met really helped me to categorize in my head the celebrations that were worth having, as well as the points of growth that were important for me to examine, right? Like when you're going through everyday life and you're just trying to do all the things, Sometimes it's really hard to stop and appreciate the good that is happening. And it's also easy to miss some of the things that need to be growing and moving forward. But my coach always asked me those things so that we knew where it was that my head was moving into the next week with our session. My coach really did a great job of helping to not only hear everything that I had to say, but also give it back to me in different language so that if I was sharing a frustration or I was sharing a challenge or something that I really loved, they would be able to give it back to me in a way that really took the feeling out of what I was talking about and gave it to me in terms of a set of circumstances that I could get through. And we would talk through these things and use it to create a goal that I was working towards within my practice. And they really made sure that the goal was something that I felt comfortable with. When we started, there were long-term goals that we talked about. So what were the big things? I.e., like, I want to be a stronger coach. I want to be a great leader. I want to make sure that the children's needs are being met. So I want to make sure I'm meeting the needs of the adult. And with that big goal in mind, all the small weekly goals move people closer to that bigger end goal, right? So imagine the big goal is what I said it is. And within 1 week, I am dealing with standardized assessment and I'm having to do that for the whole school. So it's my job to ensure that everybody is logged into the system, and it's my job to make sure that everybody understands how to be a proctor and what that means and what the testing environment needs to look like. And people need to know how to understand the data once it comes back. So all those things are kind of in my lap. And so this is the project that I'm worried about right now, or I'm thinking about and invested in. And long term, if my goal is to ensure that all children are getting their needs met and people are feeling capable and comfortable to do that, and that like everything is just going to go swimmingly, I'm going to grow as a leader, my small goal during that week might be something like, it's a baby step, but we're going to get everything logged into the system correctly. So it gives me something to really focus on that kind of inches me further towards what the big picture is, right? And as an administrator in a school, anybody who's ever done that before knows that some of the little tasks, and some aren't so little, that you need to get done, it's easy to feel like you are lost in chaos, right? Because that's not the only thing that you're working on. So you're dealing with assessments and you're needing to get all of that piece done. And maybe you have some families that need to talk to you about some things going on with their children. And maybe you have some staff and faculty members who really have some questions about what's going on with their relationships or some of the things that they've been asked to do. Or if you're in imagine you're in a public institution, there's a mandate that's come from whatever governing body or authoritative body that is around, and they're wanting to understand how that relates to their work. Or it's an independent school and there are some big fundraising things going on and people want to connect about those. And so you've got 101 things swarming around you that you need to be paying attention to. And sharing all those things with your coach are important because they can help you set the achievable goals that are related to your main goals. And I always felt really thankful that they weren't setting goals for me. They would offer suggestions from time to time after hearing all of the things and putting them together. But they really made sure that the small goals, as well as the large goals, were ones that were important to me and my practice and my own personal and professional growth as a human. And what's more is learning more about myself, learning more about the ways that I always, attacked problems or always experienced like rejection, per se, or how I always experienced joy, or the way that I kind of took information in and shared it out, the coach was able to see patterns in my behavior that I couldn't see because I was in it. So they could bring those things to me and say, like, we've been meeting for several months now, and I just noticed that whenever something comes up about, I don't know, for instance, whenever something comes up about a deadline that you have to meet for the authoritative body, you seem to get a little bit stressed. And maybe I didn't notice said stress, but my coach noticed it right away because they had experienced it from an outside perspective many times. They could really help me to zero in on what was going through my mind. And so, like, they might help me peel away the layers. So, like, where is the anxiety coming from? Where is the stress coming from? What are you feeling? What are the things that we can do to alleviate that? Maybe it's a smaller goal, maybe it's a different task, maybe it's the way that we are managing the situation. But a coach is like a thought partner who can really support you in being your best self and reaching your full potential. And I just found it to be so great in my practice. The last school that I worked at, I introduced the coaching model to the community. And one thing that I learned from my coach was like what a coach really does and how to explain that to people. And so I've often used this example myself. So we think about what we traditionally see when we think of a coach, right? We might think of an athlete, and that's one of the places where we see coaches often. And one of the athletes that I really look up to is Serena Williams. We know for years that Serena and Venus Williams both worked very hard. They practiced many hours to increase their skill, to become these amazing tennis players who played doubles, they played singles. They were really successful both in the United States as well as the international court. And they always had coaches. They always had coaches. We saw them perform on the world stage. We watched them win. We watched some challenges. We watched the world really look up to them and appreciate all of the work that they had, all of the skill that they had, all of the talent that they seemed to show. And not many people thought about the fact that they also had coaches. And their coaches were with them for years, years and years and years. And the important thing to think about is that the coach was not better at the work than Serena and Venus were, right? Had they been, they would have been able to win the United States titles. They would have been able to win the world titles. They would have been the best known tennis player in the world, but it wasn't. It was Serena. It was Venus. What the coach brought to the table was being able to have a close relationship with them and to examine their every move as they did their work and hear them talk about what they were thinking, help them think through the ways that they were preparing and building their skills, help them set the goals toward what it was that they wanted to do. Maybe they wanted to get a Grand Slam. Maybe they wanted to win the most prestigious awards. And their coach, by watching them and interacting with them, could help say, like, oh, I notice that when you swing, you step really far forward and you seem to lose your balance a little bit. What if you tried maybe stepping in, but a little less deep next time, and see how that works out for you? What are the ways that we can think of to lean into your workouts, or think about your nutrition, or just like the weather that you're playing in? Do we need to think about massages to heal your muscles, or think about, you know, all of the hosts of things that athletes do in order to support their practice? But their coach was really a thought partner, and they were in it with them for the long haul in order to support their practice and to really help them see themselves in a different light. This is exactly what happens in coaching relationships with Montessori teachers and assistants and leaders as well. A person who is able to confer with you about the things that are going on with your life, both in your work practice and sometimes if other things are necessary to be brought in, that's important too. But the coaching relationship really helps you to build yourself up. It really helps you to inform your practice. And one of the most important pieces, which I mentioned before, is that it really helps you to see the things about yourself that other people may often see about you, but you might not necessarily know. And so when we're thinking about coaching, we're thinking about solving for those pieces. We think about it in terms of what we call Johari's window, right? There are the things that you know about yourself and everybody else maybe doesn't know about you. So, like for me, that actually, let me go back. There's the things that you know about yourself and everybody knows about you. And so for me, that might be something like I have brown eyes. I know I have brown eyes. When people look at me, they see I have brown eyes. Everybody can notice those things. There are the things that you know about yourself, but other people don't know. And so that might be that I was a big Rage Against the Machine fan when I was in high school. By looking at me, you might not know that, but I listened to a lot of their music, and it's been particularly interesting to revisit recently, but people might not know that looking at me. There are the things that other people know about me and that I do not notice about myself. And so other people might notice how I respond to stress that I don't necessarily pick up on because I'm in it. And then, of course, there are the things that I don't know and also nobody else knows about me. So these are kind of the unknowns. And so our coach can help bring to light for us the things that other people notice about us that we don't, but can really help us dig into the unknowns that we don't know and other people don't know, because that's often where some of our biggest points of growth are hiding. And just as a guide to the children in the classroom, our work is to help them discover their best selves. We offer them information, we lead them to experiences, we come to them with respect and honor, and we really want what is best for them. So is the case with a coach. So, if given the opportunity, I hope more than anything else that you are at least willing to try it to see what it feels like for you. A coaching relationship can be really wonderful. It can bring so many things out for you. It can really help you to zero in on what it is that you want to do to improve your practice and become your best self. So, if you would like any more information about the coaching that we do at Montessori Makers Group, please feel free to reach out. You can email us at info@montessorimakers.org. You can always check out our website. You can create a free consultation visit. You can just click through and schedule it at a time that works for you. But here at Montessori Makers Group, we really believe in coaching. We believe in the power that it can give teachers and leaders. And we just do this so that we can see every adult and therefore every child thrive. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Always welcome to come and see. We hope you to join us again. And until then, have a great week.